and we're back to continue this really interesting session on lobbying and advocacy. In the first part, we were going more to an institutional kind of information with many tips, I have to say. And now we will focus on the active professional advocacy by NGOs and lobbying by the industry. And I just learned a few days ago that the difference between advocacy and lobbying was more about that advocacy was something that NGOs or even in administrations would do, and lobbying would be something that more focused that industry will do. But maybe our speakers will tell us more about this. Let me introduce you, Sara Berople. I hope I pronounced it correctly. She is former, yes, hello? Hello? Okay, fine. She's former Trade and Food Policy Officer and EU Affairs Manager for Food Producers Associations. And she also worked in an Interreg program, and now she's in the region Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur. And then we will listen also to Mr. Ludovic Escoffier. He is the head of the Oceans team at WWF France. So I think that, well, tell us about your experience. First will be Sandra. I don't know if maybe before you, before you, we have our Mentimeter expert. Paulo, are you there?
Yes, I am here. I was accidentally sharing my screen with the messages I was sending. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, don't worry. That was during coffee break.
Well, there was no secret on there, luckily. Well, so let's go to the next. This time it is not a question. It's a quiz. So you have 30 seconds to read the question and to reply.
Again, and the same code? Is it the same code?
It's always the same code. Perhaps if anyone has any doubts, I'll share the code again. Just 1 minute. Yeah, my colleague already shared. So now you have, it's going to be a bit more aggressive. We are going to enter in the hard lobbying. So the quiz will be a bit more provocative, let's say. So here it is.
Will you share the screen? Do you want?
Yeah, I don't. Yes, I will share the screen. Yeah, just 1 minute. So here it is. I'm going to launch. Are you ready? Can I launch the question? Yeah, you have 30 seconds. So, what is the best strategy to work with competitors' concurrents? Make them your allies, criticize them behind the scenes, make their enemies your allies, all of the above. So make them your allies it's the correct answer. It's the best approach. So I will leave to our speakers to comment on this. This is obviously one of the others also probably possible, the other replies, but this is considered the best one among practitioners of this art of lobbying, which is really to try to make your competitors your allies. So I'll give back the floor. I'll just stop sharing my screen.
Thank you. And maybe Sandra, sorry, I think that you have maybe a presentation to share with us. Is this right?
Absolutely. I'm going to share my screen if I...
So I just remind you that she has been working in the trade and food policy industry as lobbyist. So she will give us the industrial lobbying perspective.
Just to come back on the small question that Paulo just shared, I think that it's absolutely in the lobbying, everything is about the win-win strategy, and ending making your enemies, not your enemies, but building alliance and trying to find the right position to have a win-win situation. So I wanted to share with you today my experience on lobbying. I worked during 10 years in Brussels as a lobbyist. As you mentioned before, so the lobbying, purely, if we look at a definition of lobbying, it's the activities which are carried out with the objective to influence the policies, being at the regional, at the national, or at the European level. The idea is really to give input, expertise, technical expertise to the policy makers in order for them to shape a piece of a policy which will take account the interests that you are defending. You mentioned lobbying, advocacy, and campaigning. Just as a small introduction, I wanted also to present you the difference between these three type of conveying your message to the policymaker. Actually, lobbying is really specifically, it's a form of advocacy. So as I say, the purpose is really to influence the legislation. Advocacy is more an umbrella term, and it involves identifying, embracing, and promoting a cause. So the aim is the same, but the process is different. And while all lobbying is advocacy, not all advocacy is lobbying. So as I said before, the goal is really to initiate and to promote changes in policies, in program, or sometimes in spending. If you're looking at the budget of the national government or the budget of the EU. A very short panorama of lobbying in the EU. There are 40,000 lobbyists in Washington, and in Brussels there is an estimation of 25,000 lobbyists. So it's really a huge bubble, as we say, the European bubble. It's also something which is developed in the member states, some with different legislation and the fact that you have to register or not. You have here a mapping of the different strategy in the different member states. You see that, for example, France, Ireland, Lithuania, Austria, Poland, Slovenia, and the UK, they have a specific legislation on lobbying. And there is a mandatory register also in some country. In Brussels, if we really focus on the lobbying towards the European institution, there is what we call the transparency register. I'm talking about that because it can be a tool also when you will develop your partnership. Let me explain you that. So the transparency register is actually a database that which is actually gathering all the organizations which are trying to influence the lawmaking and the policy process in the EU. If you have a look here, this is a screenshot of the website of the Parliament and of the European Commission, because this transparency register is managed both by the European Commission and by the European Parliament. You can see that there are 6,500 lobbyists or representative of trade and professional association, 3,200 NGOs, a lot of different sector, a lot of different background. It's very interesting to look into this register. You can do search by sector, by subject, and it's a very helpful tool to see who is actually doing advocacy and lobbying in Brussels. and who are maybe the like-minded partners who could help you to defend your cause. Let me go through lobbying itself. When we talk about lobbying, there is something which is really essential, is really the methodology. You can apply this methodology to any cause that you are defending, being at the local, at the national, or the EU level, but really the more you will follow this methodology, and the more efficient you can be. So the first thing is really to monitor the legislative development, being at the local, national, or EU level. If we talk about the EU level, there are several tools which can help you to really see which piece of legislation are in the pipeline. What is the agenda of the European Parliament? What is the agenda of the Commission? What is being discussed? When? What is the timeline? What is the time frame? The first thing is what we call the œil. It's the Legislatory Observatory of the European Parliament. You can set up alerts, for example, on specific piece of regulation. You can also search by topic, and it gives you really a global idea of what is being discussed when, and what are the crucial steps of this piece of regulation, either public hearing, a discussion in the European Parliament, a discussion in the Council. So this is really something very important, which you can use. There is the same at the national level in France. I'm not aware of all the system in all member states, but at the EU level you have this tool, which is the œil. You can also still at the European level, at the level of the European Parliament, you can follow the committee discussion. So as Sarah explained before, the European Parliament is organized in different committees. This committee discusses several subjects, and it's very useful to follow the discussion of this committee. You can follow them also on the website of the European Parliament. You can see which member of the Parliament has said something or the other, so you can follow the position of the member of the European Parliament. You can follow the votes also, so it helps you also to have the political thinking of one member of the Parliament or another. You can read the report. So this gives you really a global vision of what are really the crucial discussion on your specific subject at a specific moment. A second thing is also the newsroom of the European Commission. You can also set up an alert on the website of the European Commission by choosing also specific subject, and it helps you also to have this flow of information. This is very crucial in lobbying, is to have really the right information at the right moment. So this monitoring exercise is a very important step. You can do the same for the Council of the European Union. It helps you also to have the position of the different member states. I won't enter into the details, but you can follow also the document, the publication. It helps you to know what's in the pipeline, what's the calendar or on a specific piece of regulation, and also helps you to know the position of the different member states and where are also the sometimes they can be also political, a consensus can be difficult to reach, so it helps you to know where are the problematics. Once you have done this, so you can do that at the European, at the national, at the local level. You can link it also to your personal human network. And once you have all this information, you try to analyze the potential impact of this piece of legislation, or in your when can you influence the legislation with the input of your project? What can your project bring to this piece of legislation? When? The third thing is really mapping the relevant stakeholders. So who is the right interlocutor for your project? What is his or her political thinking? What is his or her agenda? What is also his or her sensibility? As it has said before, as it has been said before, a member of the European Parliament are also representing their country, but also their region. So it's always very important to bear in mind this, to bear in mind the specific thing is that you can also you can also contact the member of the parliament with a specific subject related to your region, a specific problematic on transport, on environment. This is also a crucial thing. Then elaborate the key message. There, it is very important to be concise, to be precise, to be science-based. The more objective and the more sources you can quote, the better it is, really. And it can be also very useful to use the model if you can. The next step is really, once you have done this mapping and elaborate your message, you will try to build alliance, partnership with relevant stakeholder. It can be people from the, this, you will build partnership with people or organization which are like-minded, which are active in the same subject as you are, trying to build a win-win strategy. That's really the most important thing, is really to have this win-win strategy in mind. If you look at the timing of a piece of legislation at the European level, what is very, very important is to be at the right place at the right time, but also to anticipate. It has been said several times during the previous presentation. What is very important is to be there at the beginning. So what is important is not really the most important thing, I would say, is the timing of your interlocutor. It's not the timing of your project, it's the timing of the people you want to influence. So if you take a piece of legislation, there is the first stage, which is the consultation. This is one of the best moments to try to influence the policy process, because you're taking it at the earliest stage. So this can be done by responding to white book, to communication paper of the European Commission, strategy paper. They are hearing also. So there are different tools at the European, but also at the national and also at the regional level to really try to address your thematic, your subject, your concerns, your interest, really at the earliest stage. So this is really what I wanted to stress, is that the most important thing is really the sooner the better, but also trying to focus on the timing of your interlocutor and not your project. So your project can be finished, for example, for 6 months, and you have very important outcomes and inputs and findings that you could share and that could feed a regulatory process. As I said before, this win-win situation, there is something, some scientists and some researchers show that there are 6 universal principles that guide actually a human being decision. So by using and by understanding these 6 principles of ethical influence, you can actually have a better chance to influence the policy-making process. And it can also significantly increase the chance that someone will be persuaded by your request. So the 6 principles of ethical influence are reciprocity, scarcity, authority, liking, consensus. I will not go through all of them, but the most important is really the consensus. So trying to show that showing that, I'm sorry, I have I want to go back. Yeah. Showing that the input, there is a consensus on the input of your project. Liking is also building partnership, finding like-minded partners who will help you to convey your message at the EU level or at the national level or at the regional level, but alliance and is very, very important. It brings power to your message. The more you are, the stronger you are, it's a very important strategy to build partnership with other organizations. Reciprocity is, as we said before, the win-win situation. So as it has been said before, members of the European Parliament and also of the Commission and of the Council, they are looking for your expertise. They are looking for technicians. They are looking, when they are writing a piece of legislation, they are looking for people who have the expertise on the ground. So they will often look for you. And if I can share my personal experience, my professional experience as a lobbyist, most of the time the Commission or the Parliament were calling us because when I worked, for example, on organic farming for the agriculture, they were looking really for the specificities of the farmers. They wanted to know if the piece of legislation they wanted to implement was feasible technically, but also at the European level, if it could be implemented in all countries or not. So bear in mind really that you have a very specific expertise, which is really looked for at the European level. And it's a really win-win situation. It's not that you are influencing the policy, it's that you are giving your expertise to someone who is looking for it to write a piece of legislation which will be easily and technically feasible. If I can give you some lobbying tips, what is very important, as I said before, is to clearly identify your objectives and the right subject. So what are your objectives if you are conducting a lobby strategy? What do you want to reach? What is it simply sharing information? Then maybe it's not the best. A lobbying strategy is not the best. Do you want to influence policy making? Do you want a statu quo maybe on a piece of legislation? Do you want a development at the regional level? Do you want, for example, that the outcome on your project on sustainable tourism will impact in a positive way the piece of legislation on tourism? So really clearly identify your goals and the specific subject you want to address. And then, as I said before, what is very important is to identify the right moment to intervene. The right moment to intervene is not automatically the best time for your project, but it's the best time for your interlocutor. So you have to be in his or her shoes and know his agenda, know, as I said before, his political thinking, and know what is the best time for him or her, but also in bearing in mind the timeline of the legislative process. Establish also very clear, very concise message, if you can, in different language, using maybe the mother tongue of your interlocutor, and also building your message with very solid arguments, science-based or based on the research you have done, based on your project, based on the outcome of your project. Be very transparent in your communication. Who do you represent? Why? When? Respect the consultation process. As I said before, there is this timeline of the regulatory framework. So it's very important to intervene at the right timing. If you want to intervene, sorry, I wanted to show you the slide before. If you want to intervene if you want to influence a piece of legislation, but if you are, can you see my screen? Yes.
Yes.
If you want to intervene, if you want to influence a piece of legislation, but if you come after, for example, the position of the Council or at the second reading of the European Parliament, it's too late. It's too late. So really, you have to respect this specific timeline and assess when is the relevant moment to address your issues and to be in contact with the policymakers. Be present and active throughout all the legislative process. So as I said, not at the end, but the sooner the better. You can follow the hearing of the Parliament. You can also be in the on trade issue, for example. The Commission has set up civil society dialogue, which help the civil society to be involved in all the trade issues which are conducted by the European Commission. And as I said before, the crucial thing also is to be identified as an expert in your field. Once you have done that, the European institution will come to you to really look for your technical expertise. Partnership is also crucial. It has been mentioned several times before. When you conduct lobbying or advocacy strategy, it's essential really to build alliance with like-minded partner, people who will relay, who will convey your message. It's a win-win situation. You have the same interest, you have the same vision, and so as an example, as it has been said before, you can contact the permanent representation to the EU. Each country has a permanent representation office in Brussels. In addition to that, you have also a regional office. Several countries, France, Italy, Austria, have also office representing specific region. It's a very good tool to address very specific issue related to your region. And they are a very good partners really to convey your message. Sectoral association can be also very helpful. As I said before, you can look, for example, into the transparency register of the European Commission and of the European Parliament. You can search by topic, and there you can find association who are working on the same subject as you, and who can help you really to capitalize on the output of your project. So, for example, for Italy, you have the permanent representation to the EU, but you have also all the regions which are represented. And as an example for the sectoral association, as it has been mentioned before, you have HERIN, which is on research and innovation, and you have also POLIS, on which represent the cities and region for transport innovation. I cannot go through all the sectoral association. On the agri-food sector, you have also lot of different associations. So as I said before, the transparency register can be a very good tool, and it's very helpful to do this mapping, and you can convey your message directly also to this association. If they are working on the same subject, you can contact them directly. I think that's all. That's all I wanted to share with you. If you have any question, I'll be more than happy to answer them. I try to be as concise as possible. But if you want to talk about specific subject or specific strategy or example, I'll be more than happy to answer you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. It was a very comprehensive presentation. It was really easy and very easy to follow. I was writing many notes, and maybe one of it is that you gave a very good tip on highlighting, and you can tell that you know very much Interreg kind of projects, because you highlighted the partnership possibility, because and how to include good partners to do this lobbying. So I appreciate it, and I guess also the participants, all those little addresses that probably I wrote some of them and some of the names in the chat, but maybe afterwards maybe we could do put all the links, because I think it could be yes, very interesting, and also the ones from the European Commission, because as I agree with you, it's the time really that we could do our best. It's with the Commission, and sometimes we have a good contact with the Commission. Sometimes it's easier for us in an Interreg world to have a contact with the Commission than to have a contact with the European Parliament. So we should use it. I think I have a question for you. Let's see. Okay. What can we learn as Interreg projects from the private sector when doing lobbying? Is there any tip besides those that you've given us, or any difference?
I would say that the lobbying strategy is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
What is important is really to build partnership, to and to anticipate all the legislative process and be there really the sooner the better. Be really at the beginning of the legislative process. And it's not about budget. That's something also that I wanted to mention. NGOs, Greenpeace, no, but really NGOs and Greenpeace, for example, has a lot of successful stories. They are very efficient in their lobbying and advocacy policies. So it's really about the strategy. It's who you target, when, what do you say to them, have a clear message, and try to be there really at the beginning of the process, because most of the people are focusing on their own agenda, which is absolutely normal because you're working on something and you have your own specific agenda. But when you're doing lobbying, there is a shift. You do not focus on your own agenda, you focus on the agenda of the policymaker you want to target. You, as I said, you try to be in their shoes, to know what do they want, what kind of information they need, when, what kind of expertise you can bring them, and also it's important to bear in mind that they are really looking for this expertise. So you can be a bridge between this political word and the technical word, and this bridge is really it will feed the discussion. It feed also the legislative process. So yes, bear in mind that it's always a win-win strategy.
Yes, you provide information they're needing to hear too, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
They can see the chat is burning on questions, but I think first we will give the floor to Ludovic Frère Escoffier, and he will make us a presentation on their experience of WWF. Thank you very much, Sandra. And then we'll come back to you, okay? Because I can see there are many questions. Huh? So now let's give the floor to Ludovic. As I said, he is Marine Policy Officer, head of the Ocean Program. Ludovic, the floor is yours. I know that you don't have any PowerPoint, but yes, you have a presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mercedes, and thank you, Sandra, for this overarching presentation of lobbying. And it was really clear, and I'm working for more than 25 years on advocacy. As you said, advocacy and lobbying is different because lobbying is more for economical activities, as we said in NGOs. So I am the head of the Ocean Program in WWF France, and we have the chance to work with Interreg on very important project for us on Mediterranean issues. And I will present you some lesson of our global project, of our Interreg project, which was Pharos for MPAs. This project has the objective to establish clear recommendation regarding marine protected areas and sustainable blue economy. Our goals was to create some guidelines for the different economical activities, guidelines for how, for example, aquaculture which kind of aquaculture we can have in marine protected areas, which kind of boat leisure activities we can have in marine protected areas, etc. And so our objectives, the first objective is, of course, is to influence, because we are an NGOs, and NGOs is first the goal, the objective of the NGO is to influence policies of governments, is to influence for strategies of companies, and to have a role in the global society with the public, to give to give our point of view on specific subject, and to make them understand of what you can do on specific subject. So what was our advocacy strategy? First of all, as Sandra said, it's really necessary to think about the target, and it's not easy. It's not easy to define the target, because they're usually for any subject is quite complex, and so you need to make a map of the different targets, and to identify which are the main targets to influence. For example, for us, it was regarding MPAs in Mediterranean Sea. There are some authorities in each country which are responsible for the planification which are in charge of the spatial planning for the sea. So it was the first target. But in the same time, of course, because we are working on MPA, our second target was the people working for the French Agency of Marine Protected Target. And the third target was economical sector and international organization. So when you have very clear the definition of target, you have to define what you are going to do with them. What are the needs? Which kind of information they need from us to think better the situation, and maybe to be influenced by our analysis. Because of course, WWF is a conservation organization. So even if we are working we have our way of thinking of the situation is based on sustainable development, which means that we think that economy and social issues are really important, but all activities, economical and social activities, have to be based on an ecosystemic approach, which means that we cannot have in a near future economical activities and social activities which are not taking into account the ecosystem. And so it's quite easy to say that that's the theory, but into the reality, it's really it's more complex, of course. And so we need to identify the needs of the different target. And so what we decided to do is when I began the advocacy 25 years ago, there was no internet, there was no very quick communication, and people were reading some letters and reports. I don't want to to make a presentation of all very old people, but I say that because nowadays we are receiving more than many mails, many communication, many report, many policy paper, many presentation by Zoom now with the situation. And finally, it's really difficult to get the attention of the people, and especially the people we are targeted, because maybe these people doesn't need our analysis, and they are making their own job with many constraints and with many actors, and it's not easy to make them understand that what we are proposing is important. So we need to make some documents very clear, very concrete, not very long, and and at the same time with some technical advice, because we are not going to we need to, the difficulties is that we need to be quite technical, which means to enter into the detail, and at the same time we need to be very synthetic. So we decided to do some guidelines for the economical sector we were targeted. So these guidelines is like, we can maybe call them, it's like policy paper, it will be technical paper, you know, short document, a long document with more than, it was a first analysis of very big document, more than 100 pages, and with a short synthesis. And it's really important to have this kind of short synthesis that we can say it's like a policy paper, because it's easier to read. Of course, it takes between 30 minutes, 45 minutes to read. And if it is really with a very high level of intelligence for the technical sector or for the people who are in charge of the different policy, it can be interesting. So that's guidelines with two formats: something long for people who want to enter into the techniques, and something very short for a policy maker and for people who have very few time to read. And so when we did this guideline, we were thinking about our targets. Okay, so the authorities, the people who are in charge of management of marine protected areas, and economical sectors. And so when somebody is receiving this guideline, usually it's my personal experience, he opened the document and he has between 2 and 5 minutes to read it. So he will read the introduction, the conclusion, and he will do like that if he has it with paper, and he is looking at the map or some graphical things. Maybe you think that it is quite caricatural to say that, but it's really, it's a reality. The people who are in the European Commission, the people who are in the high level in some companies, the people who are working at national level have no more than 5 minutes to read these kind of things. So you have to be really to take care about the introduction, the conclusion, and the maps and graph. Because maybe if you are doing well these kind of things, the person who is going to read this information are going to take 5 minutes more to read some specific things which can be interesting for him or for his team. And it's really important, because if maybe the people who are in charge of the techniques have more time to read it, but you have to convince the boss, the people who will make the policy of the company or the state of the commission. And so you have to think about that. The 5 minutes readings and the other 5 minutes reading to convince. And of course, your documents have to be interesting for technical people. So really insist on that because the Sandra presentation was really brilliant, and brilliant because it gave you all the tips, to the methodology, what you have to do. But I tried to tell you what is a reality, and the reality is quite somehow scary because time is the king of the relationship between in our world, and more now than 25 years ago. So it's more difficult. So finally, and I will be shorter because maybe everybody is tired. And so after, when you are quite proud about your guidelines, your policy paper, it is a good one. And so there is two options. Go with your team and to say we did a really good job and have a beer together and to say, okay, we did a job. What is the next project? And go for another project. But finally, you are just in the middle, or I don't know, in the 40% or 30% of your work, because after you have to be commercial people. And for some of them, it's really difficult because everybody has some competencies different, have different character, and usually people who are more who are able to do technical things, they don't like so much to do the commercial things, and that's true for the contrary, you know. Difficult for people who are making commercial things to enter into technical things. So maybe you have to think about that when you are, maybe the person who is going to make the service après-vente, who will make the promotion of the guideline, have to be different of the people who write the document. But you have to think that's really, really different. And at this time, it's like people who somehow, it is quite caricatural, but you have to sell the document, to be sure that the person is receiving the document, to be sure that the person is reading even 2 minutes the document. And finally, it's like when you have to be we have to be very passionate, and at the same time to put a lot of energy to talk to the people, to be in contact with the people, etc., etc. And finally, this work, we can say that it is a typical kind of network. It's how to make a network. It was exactly the same idea of the first question of the quiz, how to make some allies. And finally, I really appreciate the synthesis that Sandra gave you, and with the six categories. So it's not easy to learn how to make a network. You have to be open, you have to be political, you have to be very smart, you have to be very pregnant, etc., etc. And it's not easy because it takes time to learn that. And if you are, when we begin 25 years or old, it's not easy, but finally everybody can learn the thing, and it's really important. And so, yeah, finally, it's like organizing the network to be sure that your analysis, your product is entering in the good, is entering at the right time, at the good place. Okay, so you cannot enter after the war, as we say in France, après la guerre. You have to be at the right time, and of course you have to contact the right people. So it's a long time. It's a lot of energy, and it's a lot of intelligence. And for that, of course, the NGO are going to work together because there are very few in the 25,000 people at European level. NGOs are like, I don't know, more around 200 or maybe 400 people in front of 25,000 people. So the only thing which is different is that NGOs have this opportunity to talk, to defend a cause, and have this opportunity to represent different kind of citizens, because we have some donors, and have this kind of legitimacy, and it's easier to talk to different people. So think your strategy, define very clear the target and what they need, and to propose very clear message, innovating, and to be very, to put a lot of energy, a lot of time to convince all the people with a good analysis and intelligence of the network. Thanks all for your attention. Thank you, Mercedes and Paulo, for the invitation. And it was a pleasure to share this experience of WWF France, and a part of my personal experience.
Thank you very much, Ludovic. I would like to ask you very short, and how long does it take since the time you start to work on the strategy until sometimes you have the time to get fruit from all this lobbying or advocacy work? 2 years, less, more?
Really, of course, my answer will be, as usual, it depends on the subject and it depends on the network. But I think that it's clear it's not possible to clearly, and it depends on the experience that you have. You know, for example, when you have 20 years of experience, it's not the same that if you are just beginning this work. You know, but we can say that more or less, I think that in 6 months, if you have some experience, you can define 3 or 6 months, you can define what you want, the target, the needs. After you need to make the publication, it's quite long because it depends of course of the subject, but you can say 6 months or 12 months, and you need to think, and it is really the most, to myself, the most important message. You need to think about the diffusion, and it's not only the diffusion to put the click on the email and to send it. You have to call, you have to organize some meetings, you have to go in the place physically, you have to create a personal relationship with the people, etc., etc. And usually, even in NGOs, we are doing. Because I work in different NGOs, Greenpeace, Fondation Nicolas Hulot, IUCN, etc. And usually, because the people who are making the guidelines, the policy, or the technical issues, that's not, sometimes they have not this personality of making somehow the commercial work after. It's caricature to say commercial. It would be
yes, but to sell, we are talking about selling.
Exactly.
And also it will depend also on the legislation. How maybe you have a product, but maybe they're not discussing that issue, and maybe in a year it comes. I asked you this before because we were going to give the floor now to the chat, and before that to Mentimeter. But it's because if the programs really want to have a stronger impact at the end, they should think on giving best timing probably to the projects. This is something food for thought. Maybe now, yes, Laura, it's you.
No, it's Sandra. Sorry, just to give a little bit. What Ludovic said is totally correct, and just to add something, you were asking about the timing to get the fruits of your lobbying strategy. Actually, indeed, as Ludovic said, it depends on your objective, but it can be, you can have the fruits for, if your objective is, for example, to prevent a specific piece of legislation because it will, for example, put in danger a specific environmental zone, Natura 2000, or this can be done in 6 months because you will be at the beginning of the legislative process. And as I said before, if you start really before the process is being developed, if you answer the public hearing, if you build a partnership, if you develop a lot of position paper, if you are there at the right timing, you can have a very efficient advocacy or lobbying strategy in 6 months. If the objective is to stop, if the objective is to stop a piece of legislation, it can be done in a few months. If the objective is to give specific input to a regulation, then indeed you have to follow the whole process of the EU regulatory the EU regulatory process, and then it's mostly 2 years.
Thank you. So now maybe for the questions, do we have time for Mentimeter?
Hello. Yes, you can have the last quiz of this session.
After a very interesting session, I have to say.
Yeah, extremely interesting. And I would just like to say, so the question is also, I think people will already know the answer if they were listening. So we'll test that. So I'm just going to launch then it's against a quiz. So you have 30 seconds to read the question. So please be ready. So I'm going to launch now the question. What is the purpose of European political advocacy and lobbying? So you have 30 seconds to answer.
Okay.
So here are the answers. So the right answer is really mostly as a noted lobbyist, which is a French lobbyist who is called Nicolas Ravaille, someone who has worked for years for the French government on doing lobbying on European level. He says that mainly you want to obtain an exemption to the law because European laws are usually very generic. And then people try to get an exception in the law that benefits their cause. This is his reply. It's something that you can also comment, both of you. And let's see who replied, who are the winner of this race. Dr. Sintipidi. I don't know who he is.
We don't know, but he's a doctor. He's a doctor.
He's a doctor.
Yeah. Yes.
Great job, doctor.
Okay, so thank you all. Thank you all for participating. I'm just stopping the sharing of the screen.
Okay, Audrey Samit, she says it's her, but she's not a doctor. So, okay, congratulations. I don't know if Paulo has a present for you or not.
Good answer, Audrey.
No, it's just a recognition. Okay, there were some questions, right, Laura, I think from the very beginning.
Yes, indeed, there are some questions. And there is one that I found actually quite interesting. Julia David from the Avitem, she asked if the fact of not being based in Brussels is actually a disadvantage for effective lobbying. She's thinking about all the occasions to build informal relationships which occur more easily when you're based in the same place as where all this occurs. So what do you think about that, Sandra and Ludovic?
Very honestly, I agree. I mean, it's always easier to have a personal contact with your interlocutor. Okay, with the COVID, it's a little bit different now, but we all know that it's easier when, as a lobbyist, for example, when you can go to the European Parliament, you go to the committee, you discuss directly with the MEP. It's completely different because you have a direct contact. And it's completely different as sending a position paper, an email, and it will be one email among 300 emails. So indeed, that's true. That's true, but I have a lot of colleagues who are still lobbyists. And they are doing that not from Brussels anymore. They are based in Italy, they are based in Malta, they are based in France, and they do all the strategy from where they live. And maybe once a month or once every 2 months, they go to Brussels to meet their interlocutor. So it can be done also from far away. You don't need really to be based in Brussels. But I think that you can do that once you have really built a network. Indeed, it can be difficult to have efficient lobbying if you haven't met any of the people you are talking to. So maybe it could be a good occasion to go to Brussels just for once. You set up several meetings. You go to specific meetings of the Parliament or of the Commission, and you take that as an occasion to meet these people. But it can also be done via, as I said, sectoral organization. You can meet them via meeting about specific subjects, which are now done by Visio because we cannot meet. So that could be a tool also. But the first approach is very important. The first contact is very important. I don't know what you think, Ludovic, but
yes, I think that really with the COVID, it changed a lot of things because there are now it's maybe you can call the person, you can propose a Zoom, and I think that it will change a lot with our relationship with the Zoom or Skype, because before, as everybody knows, it wasn't the same. And of course, as you said, it's really important to go if you are not in Brussels. And to go sometimes, and but finally, regarding my own experience, I was always pending on the phone, and I was able to make some kind of advocacy. What I want to say is not talking about myself, but just that you have to create a personal relationship with somebody. So now, of course, there is a phone, the Zoom, and physical meetings. But before it was really difficult to have a relationship quite close without these physical meeting. But now, because we are more in a virtual society, even before the COVID, I think that it's possible to get this relationship. And what is important is to share important information. So when you call the person, you have to be really well prepared, to ask him if he has time, and to share very, very clever and important information, and not doing blah, 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 etc. Because nowadays, everybody is just now looking at his email or this kind of thing. And so you have to be very clever and takes very few times. And it's better to have regular calls and to have this close relationship, and sometimes to make the blah, blah, blah if you see that this person like that. But it's, you have to be like, it's like chirurgical, very control. How do you say, Sandra?
Targeted.
Yes, targeted phone calls or meeting, etc.
I think that we should be reliable and available. In my cases, when I was maybe approached by assistants from the European Parliament, at the beginning, they wanted to know if you are reliable in the information you give, you are concise, and you're available no matter when, at what time. If they need something for yesterday, you will be there to contribute. And I think this is also important. I don't know, I think there are more questions, and I know that there was a question from Paolo, which I think very relevant about organizing events. But Laura, please.
Yes, there are more questions indeed. And we don't have one question, but actually 3 questions from Merci. And she's asking this question to Sandra. She says, could you give a concrete example of the process you experienced with organic farming? What legislation were you approaching? How long did the process take as a whole? And yeah, how was your opinion considered?
On organic farming, so I represented the agri-food and the agricultural and the agri-food sector at the European level, and we were involved in what is called the advisory committee. I don't know if I can share my screen.
Yes, you should.
I will try to share it. Partager l'écran. Yes. Yes. So on organic, there are specific advisory groups. They are called now expert group, which are set up by the European Commission to discuss specific piece of legislation. Do you see my screen, or
No.
I have the feeling?
Now maybe yes.
Okay. So here is the website of the European Commission, and you see on organic farming there are specific groups. The expert group gather member states, and then you have the civil. It's called now civil dialogue group, but before it was the advisory committee. In this advisory committee, you have representative of the trade sector, producer, consumer cooperative. The agricultural sector, you have the member states, you have the Commission, and you have also NGO. And this group was aimed at discussing technical issue on legislative project. So it was really a forum where we could openly discuss several issues. And to be more specific, we discussed the European legislation on yeast. We discussed also the process of equivalence between the EU and third country. You know, when you produce organic product in third country and you want to import it in the EU, you have to respect several rules, but they are actually different from the EU rules. So it's an equivalent system. And I worked also on the. They discuss also the logo, the EU logo. I could explain. I could give you a lot of stories about that, because it was a very funny moment. But yes, to answer your question, everything went through this expert group, so the civil dialogue group. The members of this group are, I don't know, can you see that? Hear my screen? Yeah. So you see, you have the BUC, which is actually the European Association for Consumer. You have the CELCA, which was the organization I was working for. Copa Cogeca are the the agriculture. You have ECPA, which is the pesticide industry. Eurocommerce, which is all the trade company of the EU. Eurocop, consumer cooperative. You see IFWAM, so WWF, also WWF is there. So that's the members of this committee, which discussed ad hoc the legislative process. I don't know if I answered all your questions.
Yeah, there's well, actually one or two more questions. She asked how long did the whole process take to like influence legislation? How long did it take? For one, for example,
from the legislative project to really the adoption of this piece of legislation, it was about 2 years. But this group is still working because there are continuously discussion on equivalence system between the third country and the EU. There are continuous problems which are addressed by the Commission and also by the civil society representatives. So it's an ongoing process. But to answer your question really about the piece of legislation, it was 2 years. On the logo, it was even more because there was a problem. They chose a logo which was actually very close to the Aldi, you know, the German brand, the Aldi one. So they had to redo the whole process. On yeast is also, it was around 1 year also of discussion to really reach a final consensus. So it depends of the type of legislation and of the objective of the discussion.
Okay, and then the other question is, how was your opinion considered? I guess that's what she means, like, did they take your opinion into consideration, and did they take it seriously?
Yes, they did, because it was first a small working group, and secondly, they were really looking for our expertise. This advisory group, this civil dialogue group I mentioned, are set up by the Commission to really feed their legislative process. So they are looking for the expertise, they are looking for the different questions. So yes, it was welcomed, and it was asked, and we were asked to be reactive, we were asked to bring answers. So yes, absolutely. We were really welcomed, yeah.
We have another question from Dunya Mani. Sorry, I'm not sure I pronounced your name right. So this is a question for both of you, I guess, for Ludovic and Sandra. Which organizations prevail in lobbying for the rules and contents of the EU Green Deal? Do you have any idea?
What do you mean exactly? Which organization did an active lobbying, which end up in
who were the most active? Because now the Green Deal is written, but it still has to be implemented. So in this phase of implementation, who do you think it will be the most active, or who do you already know that has been very active until now? It's like the same that you explained just now with the agricultural policies, with the organic farming.
It's difficult for me to answer because I didn't follow specifically this subject. And you know, there are so many organizations that it's a little bit difficult for me to answer this question, but
well, I just wanted to ask because I've been doing some research lately. So, and it was interesting for me because you knew already a lot about organic farming. That's why I asked. But I understand that if you're not involved, you cannot say explicitly.
And
yeah.
Yes, and I have some ideas, but I'm not sure because I didn't follow this very closely. So so I don't want to say. I mean, I would say of course, industry which have different interest. I assume, for example, the pesticide industry. They are the chemical industry in Brussels is very, very, very strong. So I assume that they did also good lobbying in this. In this, but maybe some specific industry. But it's, as I said, I didn't follow it, so it's a little bit difficult for me to answer.
Okay, thank you.
Precisely. I'm sorry, but I can look for information if you want from some colleagues.
Yes, it's difficult to answer. Just to tell you that for NGOs, the biggest NGOs or the NGOs which have the possibility have an office in Brussels, and there are a lot of coordination, mobilization, coordination between the different NGOs and also with the trade unions. And so in front of a big piece like the Green Deal, I cannot answer you to the detail because it was a huge work, and because I know that for oceans we did a lot of network in WWF to define exactly what you want, and after it was a huge work to push it in with the Commission, with the Parliament, etc. But it's really difficult because you have to make the coordination with your network and after to push it at European level.
Perhaps I will let Paolo ask his questions so it makes it clearer.
Okay, thank you. I would prefer to give the floor to other participants, but just one question. Really, it's as we could see in the first question of the quiz of Menti today. 80% of the participants said that they organized events to involve stakeholders that are their targets. My question is very simple. Did you do that? Do you do that as a main strategy? I mean, there's if this is something that you do also to support your actual work of lobbying with the hearings and the meetings and the one-to-one meetings. I think, do you find it useful to organize events and workshops and seminars that involve stakeholders? I mean, either in a regional level or in a national or European level.
Ludovic, do you want to answer first? Or?
Okay, yeah. I think that at European level, it's really useful, and I saw that the NGO has this culture to organize seminar and workshop, because because Brussels is like it is a specific town, because there are many people working around policies. And so there are a lot of events and many events. And finally, because people have no time, some of them from the Parliament, from the Commission, from the NGO, likes to go in this event and reading their emails, listening at the presentation, and finally it's after you can organize a cafe or something to make some informal network. So I think that European level it's interesting. At national level, even, but it's more difficult for maybe at regional level. I know that in Marseille they like at regional level it can be useful. And what I want to add, my last comment is that it is really important to give some regional example towards the European level. it was Manon Bonlolo, sorry. It can be valuable to approach them with the rapporteurs from afar. I really agree with that. It's interesting for them to be linked to some regional problematic on technical issue. So that's why if you are reliable, clever, you have a chance to interest your target. Thanks for all.
Okay, thank you. So we have only one more comment from Alessandro. He said that it's actually in relation with the previous question about the fact that it's easier to approach to live in Brussels to have an influence. So he says that he fears that it might be relatively easier for those who already have connection to maintain them, even in an online setup due to COVID. But for those who need to build the right connection, the current working mode is particularly challenging. You cannot encounter people in the corridors anymore. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
And this brings us to end up the session. I think it was a very interesting training course. Just to have some highlights to remind you what we spoke about this morning. I mean, there's a need, I got my notes, there's a need for decision makers to have information on what's in the ground, as we just said. We need to bear in mind the right time to influence. It's not our time, but their decision time. Use the tools that we have for consultancy, for consultations, the European Parliament, the OIL, the observatory that Sandra already sent. Identify your objective and also identify and define your target, which is very important. And for that, maybe we will need to do a mapping. Use your multiplier and focus on the partnerships. That's something that Interreg projects should do for the next programming period. And clear messages. Now they're overwhelmed with information and we have to be very focused on clear messages. So this is more or less a summary of what we spoke, the advices that our colleagues gave us. We have to say thank you very much to Sandra and Ludovic in this session, and before to Sarah and Andrea. Was very precious, all your tips and your experience. And I think now there's last words coming from Paulo, and to tell you that in Interact we are finishing our online course on lobbying to train. It's only about 3 or 4 hours. Will complement what we just discussed today. So I guess that in 2 weeks it will be ready free for you in interact.eu. So Paulo, it's your turn.
Thank you, Mercedes. Thank you very much to all of you, and thank you very much to Ludovic and Sandra for taking their time to share their tips. Very good. It was a very good content. And last but not least, I would like to invite you, if you haven't registered for the last session of this communication training, which will be about press relations. And we are going to have a journalist that has been journalist for 22 years in several media, including BBC. And he was also a spokesperson for the Amnesty International. So he'll be presenting as a professor, because he's also a professor of journalism, a few tips and techniques in order to work with the press. And in the first part of the session, that in the second part of the session, we'll have him sharing his experience as a spokesperson from Amnesty International. And we will also have 3 examples from projects that had successful campaigns in the press during the projects. It's Emblematic, a project from tourism. Stepping, a project from Efficient Buildings, if I'm not mistaken. and Fish MPA Blue. Oh, so we'll have again WWF. So I just knew it yesterday. I didn't know. Sorry.
A lot of advocacy from WWF.
Yes, I see. I'm just so sorry for the others, but I just discovered
Paolo,
yesterday.
please think about other organizations.
Yes, but it's a different office. It's not the same office.
Yeah, okay.
And so I would like to thank you all for participating, and looking forward to see you again in the next session, which will be next Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Thank you very much.